Anthropology is all about what it means to be human. And a cultural anthropologist like myself typically studies contemporary human cultures. I myself have a focus beyond that of environmental issues and how different cultures are dealing with things like climate change today. I've worked in Mongolia, West Africa, and even done research with farmers in Minnesota about some of the challenges that they're facing. And we use interviews and participant observation to do our research with different groups of people. But increasingly, anthropologists are also interested in bringing animals into our kind of sphere of inquiry. And it isn't just anthropology that's doing this. We also see a so-called animal turn in fields like sociology and psychology and other areas as well, where some of us are saying, we want to expand the sphere of our understanding. Animals and humans have very close relationships. It's important to study these relationships. Studying these types of relationships can help us address contemporary problems, everything from like wildlife spreading diseases to people in the Wuhan market that gave us the current COVID-19, things like that, to dealing with ethical challenges like human-animal relationships in contemporary industrial agriculture. A lot of people are concerned about how cows and pigs and chickens and other animals are treated in contemporary society and want to work for change in those areas. Studying humans and animals together is a real challenge. We'll talk in this class about how that is a challenge for anthropologists and other social scientists, but it also seems to have a lot of potential value. On Tuesday of next week, we're going to have our first live class, and so we're going to be chatting. You will have read chapter 1 of our textbook, which is all about the reasons that anthropologists and other social scientists might want to start taking animals into account in the work that they do. So you'll be able to help me put together a list of what some of those other reasons are that I haven't touched on yet. Okay, so today's class is just a brief video introduction from me and then a few things that you're going to do on your own time today. Introduce yourself via a shared PowerPoint slideshow that we have in Google Docs. You're going to fill out a survey where you're going to give me some ideas about what lesson this semester you want to volunteer to help put together and lead. That is one significant assignment in this class is to design and lead a class. That will probably be in groups of 3 because it looks like we have about 20 students in this class and about 7, I think it's about 7 slots for presentation. And then you're going to help with some brainstorming. And again, we have a shared doc in Google Docs to warm up for upcoming conversations in this class. I'd like you to think in this brainstorming session about what it means to be human versus, what's unique about humans versus other non-human animals. Now, the title of the course is Humans and Animals, and some of you might already be thinking, hey, wait a minute, humans are animals. Yeah, that's true. I just shortened it. It should be humans and non-human animals because we are animals. But a lot of people, including a lot of anthropologists, think that humans are really unique, unlike any other species, and above all other species in a lot of ways, right? And there are various reasons that we feel that way. Ethnocentrism, right? I am human, therefore I feel that humans are special, humans are superior. Also, there's the dominion thesis in Christianity, where some people believe that God created humankind to rule over or take care of all of God's creation. So we are put into a special position by God. You may or may not agree that humans are a special species. We're just going to start to think about that. Are we? What makes us unique? What makes us different from other species? And when I talk about other species, okay, this is really broad. That could be anything. That could be how are we different from our dogs and cats, or how are we different from insects, or how are we different from our closest relatives like chimps and gorillas, right? That other species in this brainstorming exercise includes all of that. Right? Is there anything that makes us unique as a species? So to help you start thinking about that, I have a few props here. I'm going to talk about human evolution. You don't have to agree with the findings of scientists who work in this area, but I'm just going to present what the common consensus among anthropologists who do this evolutionary work is. And the consensus is that the human species evolved over millions of years, that we are closely related to contemporary apes, especially chimpanzees and bonobos, and that our early ancestors lived in trees and were ape-like, even monkey-like. And then little by little, we started walking upright. Our brains changed. We started using our hands. We started using tools. We developed culture. We developed language. Right? So there are pretty well-developed theories about how all of this happened over a very long time period, over millions of years. Now, if we evolved slowly into the species that we are today, the human species, where is the line between, when we became humans and when we were non-humans, some other animal, right? Where do you draw the line? And we're not all going to agree on the answer. It depends on how you define being human, and different people can define that differently. Many evolutionary theorists believe that the Egyptopithecus, this is just a model skull, this is just plastic for educational purposes. They believe that this may have been one of our early ancestors, a proconsul monkey-like creature that lived entirely in trees, was very small, had a small brain, and was really unlike contemporary humans in every way that I can think of, right? But we may have descended from a creature like this. This is about 30 million years ago, a really long time ago. Would you call these creatures humans? Probably not. Okay, I've got another one. I don't have a skull to show you, but you may have heard of Lucy. Lucy is a famous fossil discovery in Ethiopia, and Lucy is a Australopithecus afarensis. And there's a great deal of consensus that this was a direct ancestor of modern humans. This species, unlike the Egyptopithecus, walked upright. That was the big, I guess, human characteristic of Lucy. Otherwise, Lucy and her kind, they had the brains that were like not very human, more chimp-like in their size and structure. And they almost certainly didn't have human-like language or human-like culture, right? So, were they humans or not quite? And how do you know? Around that same time or a little after, this species and others like it also roamed the earth, Africa to be specific. This is, all these are plastic models. This is a Paranthropus boise. Scientists actually disagree on how to categorize some of these fossil finds because there are so few of them. So some scientists call this by other names, but it is a very robust hominin species. The skull looks kind of like a gorilla skull. We've got large brow ridges. Um, we got a large sagittal crest here. This species is believed to be vegetarian, and it had a very strong and big jaw for chewing like tough grasses and tough seeds and things. And ultimately, this species is believed to have died out, and so is not our direct ancestor, but was a human-like cousin, right? Also walked upright, but didn't share a lot of the same maybe cognitive characteristics with us. Okay, this is a Homo erectus. This particular model is based on a finding in the Beijing area of China. A lot more like us. Our species is Homo sapiens, or Homo sapiens sapiens. This is Homo erectus, so we share the same genus of Homo. Does that mean that we should categorize this as a human, just like ourselves? Many people would think so. Although it may look like the brain cavity here is not very large, I don't know, compared to mine, or is it? Compared to earlier ancestors, it is slightly more domed. There's more of a frontal lobe. Don't worry if the biology is foreign to you. It's not my strength either, but for some of you, that's going to make a lot of sense, that the frontal cortex here was developing and that we can see that in the shape and the size of the skull. The jaw was smaller. This species was eating meat and hunting. This hunting and using tools to hunt, something that made us human, right? We're not really sure about language of this species. We're not really sure about art, singing, musical appreciation, spirituality in this species. There's a lot of things that are really hard to know based on fossil evidence. We do know that they were making fires, so maybe they were sitting around fires after a good hunt, eating together and socializing in ways that other earlier ancestors didn't do and other species don't do. Finally, this is a Homo sapiens skull. This is our species. This particular one is based on a Cro-Magnon. That's not a different species, that's just the area of Europe that the culture, the remains of this culture are found in. Found in France. This individual, when they found the skull was very damaged. And it looks like this individual had been in a fight, right? But actually, biological anthropologists believe that this individual had a very serious disease that caused portions of the bone to be eaten away by a fungus, right? So this person, when they died, it was an elderly man. He had no teeth, and he had an illness that was probably very painful. Now, I feel bad for him, but that tells us something super important about what these ancestors of ours, these Homo sapiens ancestors, were like. One thing that it tells us is that they really took care of each other. They must have had a close community, because an individual like this could not have survived on his own in this condition. Others must have been taking care of him, even to the point of like chewing food and feeding it to him. What kind of culture, what kind of language, what kind of religion did these people have? Compared to earlier ancestors, there's a lot of evidence, things like early artwork, burying dead in very specific poses with objects showing belief in afterlife. So certainly these ancestors, right, share a lot with contemporary humans, and we would also consider them to be human. So with that introduction, I hope that will be food for thought for you in thinking about what makes us human, how are humans unique, and then thinking about, when we try to define what makes humans unique, are there exceptions, right? Thinking of dolphins, thinking of chimps or other animals, right? Maybe we're not as unique as we think. I don't know. You're